Hello, welcome to this weather update for North America. So let's see what's happening. We still have a system in Nunavut with some snow, that big system in Alaska with still some gusty winds and rain, and still a system in British Columbia, some rain and snow, and some showers and storms around the Gulf. So let's see what's happening. In terms of storms, we might have some general storms in the south near the Gulf and maybe parts of the Midwest too, but nothing crazy. Tomorrow, a storm or two possible near the Midwest or Great Lakes and the south in the Gulf there and all of Florida. So, but nothing severe, just some general storms. Day 3 still shows a storm or two near like the Ohio Valley, the Northeast and some areas there, and still in the Gulf. So be aware. And day 4 through 8, nothing. So the thing we got here is the fire, because it's critical weather fire threat today parts of northeastern California, Utah, Idaho, and Nevada, especially like in Oregon and northern Utah, just an elevated, and another critical in Wyoming, and an elevated all the way to Minnesota. So be aware in those areas, like because of the wind, low humidity, would be easy for fires to spread if one formed. So just be aware and don't do any crazy things that could cause fires. And for example, let's see, they say mid-level trough rapidly traverse the northwestern corners while supporting the development of pronounced surface cyclone across southern Saskatchewan today. As the surface cyclone quickly translates to eastward through the period, white corridors, strong surface gradient winds overlap dry boundary layer and overspread very dry fields across parts of northwestern to north-central U.S. Elevated highlights are in place, especially across the Great Basin towards the northern plains. Widespread 50-mile-per-hour sustained westerly surface winds expected from eastern Oregon to central Wyoming, with the wind direction shifting more southerly across the plains states, given surface lead troughing, where relative humidity will drop to 15% over parts of the Intermountain West, with relative humidity dipping to like 20-25% in the northern plains. Sustained surface winds expect to reach 20 to 25 miles per hour over parts of the Harney Basin into the northern Great Basin, as well as the central Wyoming by the afternoon, peak heating where critical highlights have been introduced. So please be aware there. Tomorrow still a bit critical across Wyoming, northern Colorado, many parts of Nebraska, and southern South Dakota. So be careful tomorrow. And an elevated from Montana to Texas. So let's see, pronounced mid-level trough associated with surface lead trough will progress over the plain states while quickly eject upper Mississippi Valley tomorrow, Saturday. Strong southerly flow will proceed the surface lead troughing with strong northwesterly surface wind shift behind a cold front that is poised to sweep across the northern plains tomorrow afternoon. Widespread elevated highlights have been introduced with sustained surface winds should exceed 50 miles per hour amid 15-25% relative humidity in very dry fields. Critical highlights have been placed along Colorado-Wyoming border to partial central plains with 25 mile per hour plus sustained northwestern surface winds and 15% relative humidity expected immediately behind the cold front. So be aware of the critical fire. As you can see here, today, this afternoon, the Great Basin, some 10% relative humidity in the Rockies and Mountain West, 13%, so very low humidity in those areas. And there's that surface cyclone building. As you can see, the winds this afternoon will already be very high. This is the European model. It showed like in Idaho, some 84, let's see, miles per hour. So shows some gusts all the way to 50 miles per hour in the higher mountains, for 45 miles per hour, 45 and 37. So be aware, like some 31 mile per hour gusts in Wyoming, 35. This is the wind gusts, not the sustained winds that they were talking about. So let's see here. Still more gust winds southern Alberta, like 79 km per hour gusts, and like further north into Alberta, 60 70 km per hour gusts, and further south northern Montana along those mountains, some 49 mile per hour gusts. So be aware. And then this surface cyclone keeps building. The European model shows some values all the way to like 66 mile per hour gusts in Montana tomorrow. The critical fire will remain in Wyoming, Colorado, further south. There are some 32 occasional gusts, especially in Nebraska, South Dakota, so like 25 mile per hour gusts or more. But be careful, Montana. There are some very, very high wind gusts, and especially like, let's see, from Montana into southern Alberta, some 86 km per hour gusts, 98 km per hour gusts. So please be aware. There's the GFS. The GFS shows much weaker, some 88 km per hour gusts, and some 70 km per hour gusts, but also shows some gusty winds. And the HER has a similar thing to the European. Montana close to 66 km per hour gusts, no, mile per hour gusts, and Kilometer almost 100 km per hour gusts, according to the HER. The HER has all the way to like 67 mile per hour gusts there in Montana, so please be aware. Southern Alberta, southern Saskatchewan, so be careful with those winds. Even in Washington, British Columbia, some gusty winds in the mountains, Wyoming, and in the plains there. Then this is Saturday, so continuing Saturday afternoon. The HERS are showing some big winds like through the northern plains, like Montana. Still some very gusty winds those mountains there. Wyoming into Colorado. This is like Saturday at noon, showing some very high winds in Colorado along the mountains. And Minnesota, some high winds. Southern Saskatchewan, Ontario, a big area of high winds in North Dakota. Then we continue. Saturday night, still showing some high winds near the Great Lakes in Ontario, Michigan, and in other areas. So please be aware in those areas. Be careful with these strong winds. And here, wait. So further north, it shows like those winds keep going. Some lakes along like Manitoba, some areas could have some very high wind gusts, and then this keeps going there into like Hudson Bay, Northern Ontario by Monday. Still some gusty winds there, and this might move like to Quebec. Some gusty winds like late on Sunday, but nothing crazy. And now we have this low pressure British Columbia there, so it's already bringing a lot of heavy rain and snow. So you can see the low pressure there and all the clouds in the precipitation. So be aware, it's already showing like today some snow occurring there, some heavy rain, and then throughout Washington too, more rain and the snow in those areas. And in Alaska, we have that big low pressure continue to traverse southern Alaska with very heavy snowfall, and will continue. Might leave some snow around Yukon and northern British Columbia, so be aware. And there you have that surface cycle builds there, shows more rain across like Saskatchewan, parts of Manitoba, northern Minnesota, some more rain. Then, like I showed you the Storm Prediction Center, they have the general risk of storms like Sunday across the Midwest. In Minnesota, the European model, right, showing some heavy rain and stronger storms on Sunday. They don't have anything severe yet on the forecast, but just some general stronger storms there, as that cold front traverses. So like Sunday afternoon, it goes all the way down to like Ohio, and more storms for the northeast and eastern Canada, some more rain. Even showing snow into Ontario behind it on Tuesday. So keep watching it. Some more systems, some rain and snow in Nunavut next Tuesday, and showing more stuff on the coast there, like because we have that system now Friday. We're showing that front entering like British Columbia and Southern Alaska like Saturday, and then Saturday to Sunday still some heavy rain there. But next Sunday, like next Monday, shows that big system going to the coast there, so you might need to watch for that one. The GFS has also a very similar scenario, so if this happens, there's very heavy rain near British Columbia, Southern Alaska, and heavier snow. And the icon also shows a similar thing, so be aware. We gotta watch that. And the wind gusts for these systems now shows some gusty winds near southern British Columbia from the systems and the surface cyclone there. And it's still showing very gusty winds the Aleutian Island, so if you're in any of those towns there, please be careful of high waves and very strong winds, like southern Alaska and those mountains could get very bumpy the winds. And then like Saturday we start getting some gusty winds near the southern coast of Alaska because this system approaching, and like Sunday shows this bigger system approaching the coast there with some very strong winds. Some models are showing more than 94 km/h gusts, so we'll watch that very closely and be careful in those areas. Now it's showing here the critical fire, some mixed precipitation today and the rain and storms in the south. Tomorrow critical fire and some storms, and day 3 some showers and storms. Be aware, excessive rain, there's nothing next 5 days, just in the south there, like day 3 starts on day 3 on Sunday, a marginal risk in Florida for Sunday because that's system approaching. Day 4 a marginal risk again, and day 5 a marginal for Florida there. So be aware in Florida, a rainier week starting like Sunday, but there might already be some storms today in the afternoon and other days. In terms of snowfall, showing some slight snowfall probabilities in Washington there today, and some high probabilities in British Columbia there near Alberta. So be aware of that snow today, and there might be some in the Northern Cascades there in Washington. And let's see, just like they show here on the snowfall probabilities. And tomorrow later on, still nothing crazy for the days after. So the hazards, they still have excessive heat, hazardous heat in the southwest. They even have some like frost freeze day 3 through 7, the northeast and northern Great Lakes, like in the northern Midwest. So be aware, some colder temperatures, some flooding, and some heavy rain for Florida there from like the 7th and the 8th of October especially. So be careful. Showing the heavy rains southern Alaska there, all those areas from those systems, so be careful too. They've 8 through 14, some higher winds in the southwest, slight risk of high winds, heavy rain in southern Alaska from these systems, rapid onset drought, might be some drought, and below normal temperatures around the east there. So we'll watch that closely. Just like the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook, there's some below average temperatures around the east coast and the northeast, and some above average in Florida, and a big part of the west, some above average temperatures. Day 8 through 14, still showing some above average there in the west and the north, shows still some slightly below average in the east. Be aware, precipitation day 6 through 10, some higher than average precipitation expected near the west, and in Florida, so very high above average, and central eastern areas still below average. And day 8 through 14, still some slightly above average in the west, and some below average in the central areas, so, and still some very like slightly above average in Florida still. So be aware. And the heat risks still shows like some extremes in California, Arizona, some major heat risk. So some valleys of California there really extreme. So be careful, stay hydrated, stay cool. Southern Florida an extreme, some majors. So be aware. Saturday, tomorrow, still some extreme the southwest, some major. Sunday, continuous moderate in Florida and Texas. some major extreme in California. Monday, similar thing. Next Tuesday, lowers down a little bit, but still some moderate heat risk. Next Wednesday, lowers down a little bit, still some moderate in Florida. Next Thursday, better. And the temperatures does show like today's Fridays, some 100s on the southwest, 100s in California valleys, some 90s in central areas like Oklahoma, some 90s and 80s in Florida. So be aware today the heat, and from tonight to tomorrow morning shows some 40s and 30s in the Intermountain West, especially in the mountains, some high 20s. In the highest peaks, some 30s, so be aware. And they have some like some higher there in the south, and already some like 40, 30 northern Michigan, so definitely cooler. Tomorrow, Saturday, still some 100s, 110, might even get to 111 in some areas, 101 in California, 90s in Kansas, and 80s in Florida, so be aware of the heat there. And day 2 for Sunday, still very cold there, some 30s in Montana's, in Wyoming, especially in the mountains, but it will be chilly outside the mountains too, the northeast and some other areas. Day 3, maximum temperature still some 100s to southwest. Be careful of the heat. 90s in Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Louisiana. Some 80s in Florida. Day 3, at night, from Sunday to Monday, shows still very cold in the mountains there, and like some 40s in the northern US there. So let's see, day 4 shows still some 70s, some 60s in the north, some 100s in the southwest, 90s in Texas, or some 80s in the southeast. So be aware. Day 4 from Monday to Tuesday, still some chillier temperatures in the north. Tuesday, some 80s in the plains, still very hot in the southwest, some 100, so be aware. Day 5, Tuesday to Wednesday, still cold in the northeast and showing like in Maine and New Hampshire some 30s Fahrenheit, so much colder there at night, like from day 4 and onward. So be aware. Day 6, next Thursday shows like, or next Wednesday, yeah, next Wednesday shows more 100 southwest, some 80s central areas, and so like 50s and 60s in the northeast. Day 6 from Wednesday to next Thursday, still some like 40s in the northeast at night and in the morning, colder in the mountain west, and hotter in the south. And day 7, max shows like Thursday, still some 100s in the southwest, some 90s, some 80s in some areas, and cold in the northeast. So be aware. I already showed you this, but the max wind gusts expected today shows all the way to like some mountains in Wyoming, or all the way to 60, 70 mile per hour gusts, because those brownish yellow colors there. So please be aware. Montana, some very high winds, North Dakota, South Dakota, all across those areas. So be careful of loose objects and high wind gusts and everything. And there, let's see, in Canada, we have that small frost advisory near Ontario or Quebec, shows frost may damage some crops, frost prone areas, drop near zero around Saturday morning. So shows like in Quebec, I think, so be aware. And now, I already showed you the systems on wind and everything, and the GFS still showing some snow behind it, in like Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and the cold from there, the Great Lakes, and all those stuff. So be aware in those areas. Now, just one more thing, and then I'll show you some more stuff. So we have a bunch of warnings, like high wind warnings, high wind watches there, red flag warnings across all those areas, excessive heat, air quality. I think that's dense fog, yeah, because it's still kind of early there. And yeah, in Alaska, those marine warnings and wind. So please be aware in those areas. Now India again, for like the snowfall, it does show like until next Wednesday. Wait, the European model has a lot of snow near northern British Columbia, southern Alaska, especially in the mountains, some heavy snow there. Some in northern Alaska, but little. Some in northern Northwestern Territories, some light snow throughout Yukon. And it has more like in Washington, parts of British Columbia and Alberta, and down to Montana and Idaho has a tiny hint of snow. In Colorado, a tiny hint too, but very, very, very little. Has some snow in Ontario, some tiny hints of snow, and northern Quebec there, and Nunavut some. So be aware. The GFS is a very different situation. It's showing more throughout like Ontario and Manitoba and Saskatchewan. So the GFS showing more snow behind that system throughout Quebec and into Labrador. So be aware, but each model has a different. We can know exactly what will happen, but it does show more around like southern Alaska, British Columbia, many areas there, and in the Arctic, of course. So there's the icon as well, shows only a hint in Manitoba, a little bit in Quebec and Ontario, and more across the west there. So be aware of the snow. Now, good thing to show the temperatures for Canada, just a simple outlook. So that shows some very negative temperatures in northwestern Canada and Alaska, better show as well, -10, so deep in the 20s Fahrenheit in those areas, or even lower. Northern northwestern territory shows all the way to -14, and yeah, so during the day might warm up a little bit in the southern prairies, like might go to like 23 or 25, but ahead of the cold front, but not much. So shows very low temperatures in those areas still. Already like northern Ontario, Manitoba, already showing more negative temperatures, -1, 0 degrees northern Ontario, even like central Ontario, already showing like 0 degrees into Newfoundland and Labrador, especially Labrador, so -1. In Quebec, already showing like minus like 0, -1 at night, so definitely getting colder. Be aware some mountains of British Columbia. This like Saturday during the day might warm up a little, and then Sundays more negative temperatures across the east there, and on the west very negative like southern Nunavut, -1, big area of -2, -3, so be aware. And then like next Monday showing some more negative Manitoba and Ontario, and then let's see, this is next Tuesday showing some more negative temperatures, 0 in Ontario, some areas, and like next Wednesday, like I showed you in the US side, alright, starts showing that those negative temperatures near the northeast, those 30 Fahrenheit, those like -1 in Canada, like in Quebec, some -1 in Ontario, showing some negative temperatures as well, -2. So be aware of those colder temperatures, and also just the temperatures. The wind chills might be lower as well. So be aware of all of this and stay safe. Now, just one last key factor. So, like the European model here, until Thursday, October 10th, already showing the there in Florida more than like 9 inches of rainfall, southern Florida, 7 inches in Cape Coral, 9 inches. So definitely a lot of rain coming from that system. And until the 11th shows more than 8 inches there. So the GFS has more across the east, some 10 inches, and the icon has like almost anything. And so be aware of that heavy rain coming. We'll talk in more detail probably in a tropical update later tonight, but just be aware, like in quantitative precipitation, day 1 through 7, they already have more than 6 inches throughout Florida there, so very rainy pattern. Please be aware, and some isolated on the west, some more rain in other areas. So stay safe.